What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. You check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to make some a statement about LeBron James and him possibly owning a NBA franchise after he retired, right? And so now, what originally got me to thinking about this situation is Tim Hardaway said that he thinks that LeBron James is setting himself up with going to Philly. He's setting himself up to be mentored by some of the guys. Uh, One of the guys who is who has a part of the Philly 76ers organization. So he wants to be mentored by this guy. I think this is the same guy who was with the Golden State Warriors, right? Now, before Tim Hardaway even said anything about, LeBron James still wanting to be a owner, I thought to myself, well, I don't think, because of the kind of player that LeBron James was, I don't think that the NBA owners would want LeBron James to be part of their fraternity, right? But then the way I see things now is, and the way the league is going, I think maybe that's not a bad idea, or maybe it's more of a possibility. And the reason I say that is the NBA is not as successful as it used to be. And so with the NBA not being as successful as it used to be, and LeBron James is the type of guy who's polarizing, LeBron James as an owner would be he would draw eyes to the NBA, because he's polarized, almost like a Jerry Jones, but more polarizing, I think, than Jerry Jones or like Mark Cuban, but again, more polarizing than Mark Cuban, right? And so now, and I think that what you're going to see is more minorities become owners of these basketball teams. And nothing is wrong with minorities owning basketball teams, except for the situation for the minority owners. I think now won't be the same as it was for the guys who owned it in the past, because I think that because the way, like, number one, people don't go to the games as much as they used to. So the basketball is not as successful and profitable as it used to be in the day, a few years ago. And proof of that is, like, within the last, let me see, the last 10 years, you had 12 teams change ownership, right? And the reason why they're changing ownerships is because they're not making the money that they used to. And so my point is, I think you'll see more minorities start to become majority owners of these teams. And their situation is going to be, like I said, it'll be different for them than it was when basketball was at its most popular. The sponsorships, like, sponsors don't really, they won't sponsor the same way that they did, because now they're going more so direct to consumer. So those to the same type of sponsorship dollars won't be there, and it'll just be a whole different situation. In my opinion, I think it'll be more so um, like what you had with the ABA. When you had the ABA competing against the NBA, and some of the things that they used to have to do to market their team, they didn't have the big dollars and stuff like that. So I think basketball will be taking, in my opinion, is going to take a step back, because the owners, like I said, the current owners of these teams are not really making money like that. It's more so, to own a basketball team now is more so of a status symbol than it is like that's a profitable business. Once I saw that the lady, what's her name, Jeannie Buss, sold the Lakers. Her father, Dr. Jerry Buss, owned the Lakers, and he passed it down to his kids, and they sold the Lakers. And so I'm thinking, like, why would you sell the Lakers? And it comes down to money. It's not as profitable as it was back in the days. And so now you'll see, this is unfortunately the time that they're going to start opening the doors to, um, to the minority owners. And I already see it with the WNBA. Like, some of the people now, uh, you have more minority, you do have minority owners in the WNBA. people who are not even, people who are wealthy people from other countries coming over and buying teams in the WNBA. And so it's a, and that's why I think, and it's a touchy situation because, like I said, in order to own an NBA team, I think it's an honor. But don't wait until the situation has changed or is no longer as profitable. Then you want to sell the team, or you want to you want to start inviting other people into the situation where it's not going to be the same. You're not going to have, you're not going to have the opportunity to make the same type of money that was made. The teams won't market the same way that it markets. It's more expensive now, to own these teams. But like I said, the profit margin is so much thinner. And so, how will the NBA make money? They'll make money through, like, with owners. Like, if you have somebody that's polarizing, you're going to need a few owners in the league that are very polarizing. It's almost like when you see those shows. What are those shows? Those not reality shows, but those shows like Jerry Springer type shows. And people tune in for the drama. And that's what basketball is right now. Like, some people tune in for the because they love the sport, but they, more so, it's more money now into tuning in because of the drama. And that's the way I think the NBA is probably going to be marketed. And so that's why I thought, like, once you start to, I'm like, when they said they're going to give LeBron James, or they're considering, LeBron James wants a team. That's what I think the NBA is headed to. I think they're headed in a direction of being more polarizing and leaning into, they're going to have a few owners in the league that are just polarizing, and that just can't stay out of the news. You know, the money, the same money is not going to be there. The same sponsorships and the advertising is not going to be there. So how else would you market this league? Because what's going on the court is not going to be enough to appeal to the everyday fan or the novice fan. Diehard fans going to tune in because because they really like and they appreciate basketball. But if you want the sport to have that mass appeal, there's going to have to be some, almost like a reality show type situation connected to it. And so the way we see uh the NBA of the past is, I don't think it's not really going to be too much like that. It's going to be more dramatic. It's going to be more drama surrounding, like, the off court lives of the players and the coaches, and everybody associated with the league. It's just going to be totally different. And so some people might say or think that, like what I'm saying is kind of it was like, no, that's far fetched. But I can see them going that way. You know, because with the exception of a handful of teams around the league, most of the teams, they not, the WNBA definitely not selling out arenas. Then you have the NBA, is not, is not as profitable as it, with the exception of the championship series and stuff like that. Then you're talking about, you got, you're trying to sell out 82 games a year for 30 teams, and there's a lot of competition because there's so much other stuff for people to do. Yeah, I can definitely see this the NBA going the route of being more of a reality show, the whole league in general. You'll get some good basketball being played for people, diehard fans who like basketball, but it's going to be more of a reality show. And so that's the direction I think that this league going into. Now, I don't think it's going to be a situation where, like, within the next, I think that's going to happen over time, probably like within the, like, next 10 years or so. You're going to see a lot more owners coming in there, a lot more different, more characters and stuff like that, different personalities. And the NBA is going to be, yeah, it's going to be different. So that's my take on it. Remember, I said it. Um, I'm gonna say this video so people, everybody who doubted me can be like, yeah, he said, the NBA is changing. Because I'm thinking, like, why would they associate with, like, you seen the kind of player that LeBron James was. He's polarizing, right? His business partner, um, what's the guy name? Rich Paul, very polarized and say some stuff that most most people associated with the National Basketball League or most agents wouldn't say stuff like what he's saying, and so that get clicks and view, that draw eyes and stuff like that. So the NBA is just looking for new ways to draw eyes, and this is going to be the way they do it. They're going to bring people in there, and it's going to be some ratchetness, basically. That's what it's going to be some ratchetness, because I think like owners now, people own, they find they have other ways of making money, and so they'll just move on to bigger and better things and leave the NBA to people who don't mind, being ratchet. And so that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I am going to check you all out in the next video. Peace.